We are back at it.
You expect to not get your teeth kicked in on your home field by Colby.
We are back at it. Welcome back to another edition of the Pistols Firing Podcast. We fixed those 8 or 10 plays. Colby, Powell. I am Carson, Cunningham. This is another edition of the PFB Podcast. We got a lot of things to get into tonight. Thanks for everyone for joining the show. I hope you enjoyed that. I've been on the ones and twos. But Colby, we got a lot to get to tonight, brother. Hope you were able to see and hear all that as well. But we got a lot of people in here, so let's get to it. How are you?
Doing great. Yeah, Eric Stutzman says Carson has been in the lab. Carson has been in the lab. This is all credit to Carson. That intro was amazing. I guess that's what I sound like whenever I scream Tulsa at the top of my lungs. So, yeah, well done on the intro. That was very impressive.
Well, there were some after effects on there. I kind of like blurred myself and I put a little reverb there for the Tulsa. I think it sounds even better that way. Thanks for everyone joining the show. We'll get to as many questions as we can. I'm Carson Cunningham, joined as always by Colby Powell. Colby, let's start here. Let's see if the ones and twos are working here. This show is brought to you by Chris's University Spirit, your one-stop shop. Be sure to shop at chrisuniversityspirit.com. Let's see if I can do this here. Yes, Chris's University Spirit, all day, every day, free standard shipping on orders over $75. You know Chris's. You've been to Stillwater before if you're watching this show. Go buy Chris's in person or shop online. Plenty of great selections there to choose from. They have been a long time, and I mean long time, sponsor of the show. And I got to say, wait, people are saying my audio scuffed and has an echo. I don't know what's going on. How do I sound to you, Colby?
I don't know if your mic's turned on.
There we go. Could you hear any of that I was talking over?
I could hear you. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the listeners could not hear you based on the chat. Was your mic turned off again? Did it turn off on you?
I don't know. Who knows? Who knows?
You got gremlins in there.
We got Chris's out of the way, though. They're a great long-time sponsor of this show. Been with us for many, many, many years. And I hope they enjoy the new look of the show. So I appreciate Chris's, appreciate all of our listeners as well. So Colby, without further ado, let's get to the show, shall we? We got a rundown in here. I need to kind of fix that as we go. But I guess just Colby off the top, your initial thoughts on Mike Gundy getting fired. I've heard a lot coming into today that I'll get into, but first I just wanted to get your initial thoughts.
Yeah, my initial thought was surprise, not necessarily shock. I think we knew that something like this could happen. I guess the surprise from my end was that they went from Friday to Tuesday. Like it was a Friday night game, and they waited all the way until Tuesday. They let him go out on Monday and do the press conference. They let him go Monday night and do the coaches show. So at that point, it's seeming to me like okay, we're gonna be rolling ahead with Mike Gundy as the head coach for Oklahoma State. And I don't know, that just that hasn't been the case. So yeah, it was really surprising to me whenever it came down today, just because of the timing. But I don't know. I kind of feel like a weight has been lifted off the shoulders of the program. I don't know if Mike Gundy feels like a weight has been lifted off his shoulders, but it just felt like this was going to hang over the program the entire season. It felt like it was going to be the primary talking point the entire season. The press conferences, I mean, he knows what's going on, but he's not acknowledging it. The press conferences are just awkward and uncomfortable, and it seems like they were making everybody more angry. So it's kind of like Chad said today, there's not a perfect time to do it, but at some point you've got to rip the Band-Aid off. And it seems like they decided to just go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off. So I'm here for it. I think it was time for a change. I didn't know that it would necessarily come mid-season, but now that it's happened, I don't know, Carson. I kind of feel like it's a weight lifted off of Oklahoma State football, and now we can hopefully get to a point where we can celebrate the past while also being excited about the future instead of just sitting here dreading the now.
Yeah, and we'll get into what I do agree with you. I think a cloud is going to be lifted amongst not just the players, but the coaches. I mean, we're going to get to find out what Doug Meacham's really got calling plays. I mean, he's coaching for his next job if he wants to be retained with whoever the next coach might be, which we'll get into all that. But I did want to start, and I'll get back to your points you made there about Gundy, but I want to start this show by giving it up to Mike Gundy. The guy arrived in Stillwater in 1986. I was 2 years old. He is as synonymous with Oklahoma State University as Pistol Pete. So let's just say credit to Mike Gundy, unbelievable coach. I've said it for years. He's a college football Hall of Famer. And is my mic still quiet?
Yeah, the people are saying it sounds like you're not using the mic in front of you, like you're using your computer mic. Okay. Well, it's weird. You're coming through normal and loud to me. So appreciate everyone letting us know so that we can work through it. We're doing it live. What was it, Bill O'Reilly? Bleep it, we'll do it live.
Yeah, the O'Reilly factor. I'm not sure why it's not
working. How about now? Is that better?
You sound good to me. Everybody's just saying you're quiet. Do you have a manual setting on your actual microphone that you can crank up?
I do. Let's.
Yeah, and the people are saying it has some feedback. So.
Well.
I don't know. It sounds good. It's weird to it. It's weird
for us now, folks. Is that better? Can you hear me now?
Somebody said yes, way better. So.
How about
okay,
now?
Better.
Okay, better.
Everybody says better. Audio's good. It's so weird trying to fix that because it sounds good to you and I. So we appreciate everyone.
I appreciate the commenters. Better, yes. We are back at it officially, I guess. So I want this show by no means to be a pile-on Mike Gundy show. That is not what this show is about. Now, I've gotten so many text messages and calls from people asking me what's really been going on, and I do have some insight on that. And that's going to sound like me piling on Mike Gundy, I'm sure, to Mike Gundy and his camp. That is could not be further from the truth. I wanted Mike Gundy to go out with a national championship, much less a Big 12. And he's brought Oklahoma State to a level that higher than we really ever could have dreamed of, honestly. When I was a kid, I still remember seeing a little number 21 next to their name in 1997 going, oh my God, Dad, they have a number next to their name. Can you believe it? It was like the greatest thing in the world. And look where we are today. So I do want to give Mike Gundy all of his plaudits, all of his credit. And he's been a tremendous ambassador for Oklahoma State University. And so what's really been going on? Do we want to get into that? Or I guess I'll just give my take on him being fired. So I started to hear almost immediately after the game, and what I said on this show last week held true, that Mike Gundy would be given the opportunity to state, this is my last ride, cowboy, my last ride, and go out with whether that's a reduction in buyout, things of that nature, kind of shepherding on really just to stem the tide, because as you mentioned, things were getting toxic. I mean, they were chanting "Fire Gundy" in the student section. And so, as I said on last week's show, Mike had the opportunity to do that. But as you heard him on the press conference on Monday, which I'm told he was given that opportunity to state publicly, this is my final year. Now, I don't claim to know it as a fact. They were going to let him coach out the rest of the year. I do know that they were very disappointed he did not take Monday as an opportunity to state this was his final year, and I'm going to be, a great ambassador for the school, help him pick the next coach, which is in his current contract, all of those things. And the thing that I heard last spring, he said it in his post game on Friday, I have a 3.5-year contract. He said it on Monday, I have a 3.5-year contract. And the thing that he valued the most when it came to his job status was that buyout. I can say that with 100% confidence. That's the number one thing he wanted to preserve. Chad Weiberg wanted it much lower last spring. Credit to Gundy and his attorneys, whomever was dealing with the administration. They got that number to 15. And he basically stated it publicly Monday that you're going to have to fire me and pay me my buyout. And so that's what happened. And as I said on last week's show, Chad Weiberg's the athletic director. He's making that call. Chad confirmed they met on Monday. But did you notice, Colby, what Chad said? He said those discussions did not take place this morning. Did you catch that?
I did not catch that bit. I was listening to it at 2x speed to try to get all of it in. I was doing a franchise hit when it was live, so I was listening at 2x speed, and I caught about 80% of it. So, yeah, I thought Chad was pretty solid, but this is interesting. Keep going. I don't want to cut you off.
He was asked, did you have discussions about, reduction in buyout and finishing out the year? He said those discussions did not take place this morning. And so I was kind of surprised nothing had happened over the weekend, but it's readily apparent to me based on everything I've heard and spoken with people about, is that that's basically what happened over the weekend. And it was a staring contest, just like last spring. Well, what happened last spring? Fired coaches at the 11th hour before that Board of Regents meeting on Friday. And it's clear Gundy just said, you're going to have to fire me and pay me my buyout. And so they actually saved money by doing that. The last 3 months or whatever that is on his contract. And so that's essentially how we've arrived today, is that they were making a move. And I think Chad really had to toe the line at his press conference. He was asked about his contract. He basically said without saying, like, I'm not here to spike the football that I'm getting a new contract while we're announcing that we're moving on from Mike Gundy. So basically everything I said last week held true, essentially, Colby.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense with Weiberg being very careful with his wording today. And yeah, Gundy's presser yesterday, it really seemed like an opportunity. Like we all knew this is rock bottom, right? And I think the fan base kind of knew. I think the administration kind of knew. I would guess that the players in that locker room kind of knew at this point. Once the Oregon game happens, okay, you get the bye week, and now we're coming home to see, was this an Oregon thing or was this an Oklahoma State thing? And we got our answer in a big way on Friday night. That question was answered time and time again throughout the course of that game, as Tulsa was just the better football team. I said this on Saturday. It was not David beating Goliath. It was a couple of Davids cutting it up, and they were better than Oklahoma State. And for Mike to not acknowledge the state of the program Friday night, I found it to be very frustrating. And for him to stand there yesterday and talk about his contract, I found to be very frustrating. It again seemed to me like a coach who was missing the mark on where things are at right now, on where public perception is at right now, on where his program is at right now. There will be plenty of time to talk about the program that he built for 20 years. And all the great that he accomplished. And that's part of the reason I'm glad they went ahead and ripped off the Band-Aid now. I think it gets us closer to the healing process with the greatest head coach in the history of the school. But right now, when we're in it, and everybody is sitting here at rock bottom looking at all these other schools around the country, and then Mike stands up there yesterday and says, we're doing the best with the hand we're dealt. Coach, it's the same hand everybody else in college football has been dealt. It's the same hand. Iowa State got the same hand you have. Less money, probably. West Virginia, UCF, Arizona State, Utah, TCU, Baylor, Houston, Cincinnati. You think any of those schools have more money than Oklahoma State? Maybe Utah, maybe Baylor. That's a private school. We don't know. Maybe. I don't know. I would guess Oklahoma State is pretty much on par or above in terms of money with any of those other schools. The hand you've been dealt, Mike, it's not a hand that you can sit down and check raise to Oregon or Ohio State or Georgia. You can't do that. I get it. You go to Eugene, you get beat. Okay, it is what it is. But to fall off and become the worst team in the country. I mean, somebody sent me a tweet the other day, and it was like the Sagarin rankings around the country and where Oklahoma State would be. By far worse than the Power Fourth, like outside the top 10 in the Sun Belt, barely inside the top 10 in the MAC. Like just a really bad football team. And the hand that you've been dealt isn't that bad. I mean, Chad was clear today in his presser. We're not fielding an inexpensive team. The results might look inexpensive, but we're not fielding an inexpensive team at Oklahoma State. So, again, I just think Mike Gundy's business as usual attitude. Like, this is not business as usual. This is the worst stretch of football that has been played in modern school history. I wasn't around in 1907. Neither was anybody else on this stream. I can't speak to what was happening in 1907. In 2024 and 2025, this is the worst football that has been played in modern program history. And the worst part is, there's no hope. There was no hope around this improving because it was just, we've got to get back to practice, got to tighten up our schemes. Concepts are fine. 8 to 10 plays, couple of nice fourth down conversions by them, 8 to 10 plays. No, it's not 8 to 10 plays. It's a calendar year of the worst football that has ever been played at Oklahoma State. And yes, that comes on the heels of 18 incredibly successful years. But man, it doesn't take nearly as long to burn it down as it takes to build it. That's just the reality. And it burned it down in a calendar year. One calendar year, Carson. Mike Gundy's last victory, Tulsa. Mike Gundy's last loss, okay, pardon me. Mike Gundy's last real victory over an FBS school. He beat UT Martin. His last victory over an FBS school, Tulsa. His last loss, Tulsa. Calendar year in between. I mean, he just, I think he was missing the mark on the pulse of the program, the pulse of the fan base, the pulse of the donors, the AD, the Board of Regents. I think that he was just missing the mark, and I think his business as usual attitude, both Friday night and yesterday, ultimately led to this decision.
Totally. And as I said on the last show, the powers that be wanted to see, was this an Oregon problem or is this a Mike Gundy problem? Well, that answer was emphatic with Tulsa coming on your home field and really dominating you. It really wasn't close. And to your point, I don't care if you're Nick Saban, you lose 11 straight FBS games, all the things you mentioned, 1907 worst lot. Like, it doesn't matter if you've coached there for 50 years. If you're losing at this level with this zero-sum game that college football and college athletics has become with NIL, it's over. It was, the decision was made for him, and that's ultimately what I was being told last spring, is that, yeah, we're not going to fire Mike after a year removed from making the Big 12 championship game, but we need to see it black and white. Well, it's black and white. I mean, Mike Gundy would admit that publicly if he could. And so yeah, this is a business decision. I mean, I couldn't believe how many people were there for a Friday night game after getting embarrassed by Oregon. Like Oklahoma, and we'll get into this. Oklahoma State has a lot of resources that have been untapped. And Mike, and that's ultimately my next point about Mike. And again, I have nothing but respect for him. We've had great dealings in person. I covered the guy I was in college when I started covering Mike Gundy. Nothing but good things to say about my dealings with him. Nothing of this is personal. This is really what's going on, is that Mike Gundy has been his own worst enemy. In that, I'm gonna state this publicly now. Colby, did you know that Steve Lutz has more NIL dollars at his disposal than Mike Gundy does?
Ooh, big yikes. I'm assuming you're going to tell me that's as a direct result of going out and rounding up those funds?
Yeah. Why would that be? How could that be with OSU basketball being dormant, being completely irrelevant for 20 years? How is that possible? Well, as I said all the way last spring, Chad Weiberg has made it abundantly clear to every coach on campus that your number one job is to coach these student athletes and guide them and mentor them. And right alongside that is raising money yourself for NIL. He can only call so many people, call so many boosters. it's incumbent on the head coach to fund his program. And Steve Lutz has done that. Mike Gundy has chosen not to. That's what I mean by he is his own worst enemy. I've said this for years. He's a self-admitted recluse. He does not show up to booster functions. He does not have time for it. And he didn't need time for it before NIL. Well, those times have changed. They had to write it into his contract, Colby, to do those things. And he wasn't doing it. And Chad made the point today, they paid a lot of money for players this year. But the fact that they only spent $7 million is not an OSU problem. It's a Mike Gundy problem. That is an untapped resource for his own choosing. And that's what I mean by his own worst enemy.
Yeah, and you'll notice that Chad, again, choosing his words very carefully today. And the more we break down what he got into, the more I'm realizing how carefully he did choose his words. When he was talking about what he's going to look for in the next coach, he's talking about somebody who's going to come in, someone who's going to have a plan for how to win and build a program in the modern era, because that's clearly the disconnect here with Mike Gundy, right? Like it's obvious. It's obvious, laid out in front of us, that is the disconnect. And I talked about this on Saturday. It's the above and beyond stuff. It's not showing up at the office at 6 a.m., watching film, being at practice, working on your schemes. I have no doubt that Mike Gundy was putting in the hours and that Mike Gundy was doing his best as a football coach. It's the above and beyond stuff. The above and beyond stuff is what you have to do now in modern college football if you want to compete. Just showing up and doing kind of, I don't want to say the bare minimum. I'm sure he's been putting in 70-hour weeks. I don't want to say the bare minimum because that's probably unfair. But the above and beyond stuff that takes you from, a middle-of-the-road program to a top of the Big 12 conference type of program, that's the stuff that it seems like we haven't been getting from Mike Gundy. And it's just, Hunter in the comment section here on YouTube. I know we're going to get more into the YouTube questions later and stuff, but I do just want to address one thing. Hunter is talking about the fast firing. He says, blame LSU. They had a fast firing on Coach O. 18 years of success buys you more than 1.25 years of a leash. And I understand that. Hunter, my retort would be, it's so much more than like they're just having a down year. It is 0-9 non-competitive in conference last year. It is running your mouth at the fan base to the point that, Carson, that cost him money. What he said last, it cost Oklahoma State money.
That's another part of the own worst enemy. I'll get in more of this when we talk to Chad Weiberg on the rundown. But yeah, he didn't pick up the phone. Chad Weiberg implored him to pick up the phone and repair all of the damage and wreckage he caused with those comments. And he didn't do it. He didn't. And that's what I mean by his own worst enemy as well. So sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. Yeah, if we want to go back in time and remember exactly how that played out, he waited until election night, and at about 8 o'clock on election night, he sent out a 20-word apology for his comments to the fans. And I'm just telling y'all, that cost Oklahoma State money.
A ton.
That along with the national embarrassment of what took place with the renegotiating of the contract last December, negotiations that were necessary. Obviously, this buyout would be $10, $12 million more had they not had those negotiations. And again, the reason that the leash was shorter than it should have been, if Oklahoma State had gone from Big 12 championship game in 2023 to, 6-win team in 2024, and the coach doesn't anger the fan base, and now they're off to a 1-2 start, but there's some hope, and maybe there's a chance they get to 6 wins again this year, then we're not sitting here having this conversation. I don't think Mike Gundy has lost his job in that scenario, but it's the total picture of everything that was really, truly worst case scenario in terms of how your head coach has performed both on and off the field as the man leading your program, leading your players, and putting a watchable product on the field on Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. A watchable product. Not even good. A watchable product. It's been unwatchable for a calendar year. An unwatchable product combined with the off-the-field stuff, mouthing off at the fans last year, refusing to acknowledge the state of the program, still never in the spring went back and addressed his comments last fall. And then now, again, it's just business as usual. It can't be business as usual when you haven't won an FBS game in more than a calendar year and you've been outscored by about 300 in that time span. So it's the totality of it that led to this, Hunter, I would say more so than just the losing of football games.
And it goes beyond that too. Like, look, I've talked about this. You and I have talked about this for years. I said this whenever they finally fired, like keeping Casey Dunn as long as bringing him back after the 2022 season was inexcusable. They were horrendous offensively. They were 77th, I believe, in yards per play. Mike Gundy got comfortable. And I think if you want to criticize Chad Weiberg, you can criticize the rollover contract. Now, I would argue that Mike Gundy had no bigger supporter than President Trump. I think that's where a lot of that contract came from, frankly. But he had a rollover contract. There was no incentive for him to, for lack of a better term, work harder. And I don't want to use that term, but like the easier decision was to keep Casey Dunn. The easier decision than going and hiring a Will Stein or whom, Ben Arbuckle, a young up and coming coordinator that can infuse some creativity into your offense. Instead, he hires Doug Meacham, who's on his first staff, who hadn't called plays in 4 years. And he hires Todd Grantham, who hadn't called plays in 4 years and was out of a job in the NFL. Like, those are just easy path of least resistance decisions. So, like, look, Mike Gundy's a Hall of Fame coach. I've said that many times, but he quit doing the things necessary to stay at the top of the game. Like hiring Todd Monken, who is now probably the top offensive mind in all of football with what he's done with Lamar Jackson. That's one hire of his friend that worked. It just turned out to be this incredible coach. Dana Holgerson. We were in this exact same spot in 2022, all the way back in 2009. Lifeless offense, shut out in Norman, practically shut out in the Cotton Bowl. Hires Dana Holgerson. You can argue if that was forced upon him or not. I don't really claim to know that. The fact is he hired him. And when he started to hire coaches he wanted to stay, and path of least resistance is where that combined with the lack of doing the things necessary with the boosters and stuff is really how he got to this point. Mike Gundy didn't forget how to coach. I just don't think he was pulling out all the stops like he did when he was in his career.
Yeah, exactly. It's the above and beyond stuff, the pulling out all the stops. And I'm reading through the comments here, and we've got some good stuff. I've highlighted some stuff that I want to circle back to. So everybody keep throwing that in here. I'm blown away, by the way, that it's after 9 o'clock on a Tuesday and we've got 650 people in here. We're forever humbled by the support of our listeners and all the people in here. So, yeah, Carson, it's been one thing after another for a couple of years now. And some people are debating, Casey Dunn, was it him? Was it the Casey Dunn offense? Was it the Mike Gundy offense? Maybe after what we've seen this year, we owe Casey Dunn an apology. I think, and this is kind of the point we've made all along, is at some point, Mike Gundy needed to have the realization that his offense, the stuff that he was working, it was not consistently the stuff that he was running, it was not consistently working. Like at some point, Mike Gundy needed to take a look in the mirror, self-assess, look at what his offense was looking like, realize that only, a few moments of Spencer Sanders' brilliance with his legs was bailing them out there for a couple of years. 2023 still hard to explain, but we were begging Carson last offseason, begging Mike Gundy to go out and get a young, innovative offensive coordinator to come in and run his scheme, and Mike Gundy be the CEO, do all of the above and beyond things to raise the money, to get the roster, to do all of that stuff, and let a young, innovative mind come in and run his offense, a modern offense. Defenses adapt. And the offenses that really worked well for Oklahoma State in the late 2000s, early 2010s, and even through the Rudolph era, defenses adapted. Not as many points have been scored around college football the last 5 years as were scored the previous 5 years, as were scored the previous 5 years, because defenses catch up. You've started to get way more too high shell looks. We don't have to get into all the coverage concepts and things like that. The point is, Mike Gundy was unwilling to adapt his offense over time when everyone caught up. And that's why you and I have talked so much about the phone booth offense. And I was on the phone with a friend of mine this afternoon, and we were talking about it. If opponents just can play a light box because they don't have to put an extra man in the box to stop the run. So you're playing a light box, and all you have to defend is quick screens to the outside and fades up the sideline. I mean, is there an easier offense to defend in the world than a team that can't run the ball and just throws screens and goes up the sideline. Like, that's it. And it's just the perpetual unwillingness to adapt by Mike Gundy, from the NIL aspect to the portal aspect to his offensive coordinators to the entire scheme of his offense. I've had a couple of people reach out in the last week and just say, oh my God, yes, the quarterback rooms. What is going on in the quarterback rooms? Why is it one mobile guy and one statue? What are we doing? Like, I'm begging the next head coach to please just bring in 3 mobile quarterbacks. Even if the next 2 aren't as good as the first one, if they can all run, let's run the same offense. It's just, it has seemed like Oklahoma State has been trying to fit square pieces into round holes for a few years now. 2021 was a truly magical season. 2023, I think, was proven to be a little bit of lipstick on a pig and winning some close games. But hey, you won the last Bedlam. Forever, go Pokes. Forever, Mike Gundy, Casey Dunn, Alan Bowman, everyone, for the memory of the 2023 Bedlam. But once the wheels truly came off in the last calendar year, I mean, the wheels are off. It's time to rip off the Band-Aid. And again, like the alternative, some people are saying, I can't believe they did this midseason. I even listened a little bit to the Animal today, and Mark Rogers was saying he was surprised that Mike didn't coach out the rest of the season. And again, maybe he was given that option. Chad was very, very specific with how he chose his words. But is that necessarily what you wanted, to have that just loom over everything all year? I think this allows Oklahoma State to have a gap between the Mike Gundy era and the hiring of the next head coach, so that it's not all happening at once. We're not all digesting it all at once. We're not all having to figure out how we feel about Gundy in this exact moment and how we feel about it in the last 20 years. Like, we now get 2.5 months to figure out, okay, get our footing in the post-Gundy era, and then we can all be fully ready for what comes next and the next head coach. So I don't know. I think that the product on the field could not possibly get any worse. I mean, you lost your 69-3 and then at home to Tulsa. The on-field product could not get worse by firing the head coach. There was no sense in letting it loom over the team, the fan base, the donors. There was no sense in letting it loom over everyone for another 2.5 months.
Yeah, I mean, it was basically Kansas post Mangino, like we discussed last show. And so I actually had a sort of, I guess I could call it a source. I had someone reach out to me last night saying that something was coming today about Mike. And it's the first time that person's reached out. So, I went to J school, big capital J journalist over here. I was like, I can't run with that. So turned out he was right. So maybe I need to listen to that person moving forward. And I completely agree with you that this really provides everyone a reset, provides everyone to calm down, Mike Gundy included, along with everyone else in Stillwater. And I continue to hear just, and we'll get into that with Chad next segment, I guess, but just the level of dysfunction that's been going on in Stillwater is alarming. But hopefully this is the first step towards streamlining everything, and hopefully so. And just one last note on like Mike's reticence to raise money booster style. Have you seen, Colby, the Steve Lutz the kind of booster thing and the David Taylor booster thing where you can like go to the wrestling room and go to practice and be with the team, and the amount of money you can pay to do all of those things? Like you don't see that in football during the off season. You just don't. And I think there's, as I keep saying, there's a lot of untapped resources when it comes to Oklahoma State. You're going to see a lot of big money boosters all in after this, because Mike chose not to repair a lot of those relationships last year when he said the things that he said. And so, again, I'm not trying to pile on Mike Gundy here. This is just the reality of what's been going on. This is the reality of why everyone thinks Oklahoma State's a poor school and doesn't have, as Chad Weiberg said in the press conference, this is not 1988 Oklahoma State. It's not. Okay? So I think people are going to be dumbfounded once they get a head coach in here that starts raising money.
Yeah, and some people probably will think we're piling on. Today is the day to discuss, in my opinion, today's the day to discuss everything that led to the firing. There will be a time to go back and look at everything Mike Gundy did. And we will probably go back next offseason, and we will probably have a show where we just go down top 10 Mike Gundy moments in the history of his coaching career at Oklahoma State. Today's the day to talk about what got us here, where we go next. And the stuff you talk about with Lutz and with David Taylor, Carson, that's the above and beyond. Like, why isn't there a package where boosters, donors, whoever. I mean, it can escalate in price. I mean, how much would certain people in the Oklahoma State universe pay to go sit into practice for a day, to just go hang out, be a part of the football program for a day in fall camp? How much would certain boosters pay for that? I bet it would be a lot. How much would certain boosters pay to just go out to Carson and just play a round of golf with Mike Gundy? I don't know if he even picks up golf clubs. Whoever on the coaching staff plays golf. Do any of the players play golf? Go out to Carson. How much would donors be willing to spend on stuff like that? Like, there are so many opportunities. And Chad got asked a really good question today. I was impressed by the media today and the questions that were being fired off. Marshall said that it was the most people that he's ever seen in that room, and I totally believe it. Chad got asked, Virginia Tech announced that after they fired their coach, they got an influx of donations. Money started rolling in. Do you expect something like that to happen here? And Chad, he gave the exact right answer that you should give as an athletic director who just fired the head coach of 20 years. You know, we're not sure about that. We feel like we're in a good spot, and we're excited for what could be happening moving forward. I'll answer it for you. Hell yeah, more money's going to start rolling in. More money's going to start rolling in. Like, people were fed up with Mike Gundy. Bill Haston reported in the Tulsa World 2 weeks ago that there's an 8-figure donor ready to cut a check, but he's not giving a dime until Mike Gundy's gone. A bunch of people canceled season tickets. A bunch of people stopped donating after last season. Like, yeah, more money's going to start rolling in. We're going to get some excitement back into the program. And I guarantee you, whoever Chad hires to be the next head coach is going to have that hunger to get out and do everything possible, to get every dollar possible, to get every player possible, to win every game possible. The above and beyond, Carson. It's got to be there. It wasn't there the last couple of years with Mike Gundy, and I'm excited for whatever the future brings in that aspect.
Yeah, Eddie McDaniel said it perfectly in the chat, and Chad Weiberg himself pretty much reiterated. Eddie said, we have 129 suites that cost $300K a year with a 5-year wait list. That's the most in the country. There's plenty of money. Like, that spells it out pretty well. And you just look at the crowd again on Friday against Tulsa for a team that went 0-9 in conference play last year. That really says it all. And I do want to shift to Chad Weiberg because, like, if you step into the chamber on PFB Plus, subscribe to PFB Plus. I hop in there from time to time. There's some absolute great discussions in there and an absolute Looney Tune in there. And I think everyone that's in the chamber knows who I'm talking about. But anyway, Chad's taken a lot of arrows through the past year. Remember when the Gundy showdown happened, everyone was like, how could Oklahoma State do this to Mike Gundy? And just think about the impossible position Chad Weiberg has been in since he took the job with OU and Texas leaving. I won't go through all that. But think about the impossible position he's been in with Mike Gundy, who had a rollover contract, a $25 million buyout at the time, who was not willing to do what he asked, who was not willing to fire his tenured assistant coaches, who was not willing to raise money. And that stadium still somehow is still full on Friday against Tulsa. He's had an impossible job. He had open heart surgery on top of it. So I don't want to hear any more people on the chamber or publicly trying to blame Chad Weiberg for the football program being in the current state that it's in. If you think that, I don't know what else to tell you. What's he supposed to do with everything I just laid out?
Yeah, you talk about playing the hand you've been dealt. Mike Gundy wants to talk about the hand you've been dealt. How about the hand Chad Weiberg was dealt? Chad Weiberg came in, he had to roll over the wrestling program, he had to roll over the basketball program, and now he's having to roll over the football program. And he's having to roll over the football program at a time where there was a lot of push and pull going on with Mike Gundy and the administration. And I also think to an extent, Chad was having to navigate whatever the perceived feelings of the fan base would be. Again, college football is a crowd-funded sport. That's the reality. College athletics are now crowd-funded. Revenue sharing is going to help even some of that out a little bit, but we're crowdfunding these things. So you better believe that Chad Weiberg is taking the pulse of the fan base midway through last season. Whenever Mike Gundy makes his comments about people paying their bills, whenever everything is happening, you go 0-9 in conference. And I think that last season, the fan base was still fairly split on what to do with Mike Gundy, what not to do with Mike Gundy. And we've talked about it before. I think being the school that has one down year and then fires your coach, I think that's tough. I think that's really tough after 20 great years. But then when it just bleeds over into this season and it's more of the same, and he's made it pretty evident that he is unwilling or unable to change at this point in his career, then you can go ahead and do that. And I think that Chad has done his best with a bad situation as it pertains to Mike Gundy the last year. I don't know that a lot of us sitting here in this YouTube live right now, the 700 of us or however many are in right now, I don't think many of us have handled this too much better than Chad did. He had to walk a really tight line because if he fires Mike Gundy at the end of last season, like some people are saying he should have, I mean, I think there's still half the fan base that's just about ready to riot because they're still defending Mike Gundy at that point. I don't think we're there anymore. I think the percentage of the fan base who is frustrated and upset today with the firing of Mike Gundy, I think that's 5% of the fan base. I think it's a low number. I'm sure your phone was blowing up today. My phone was blowing up today. I got texts, I got calls. And I mean, to a man, it was time. I'm glad it's over and we can move on now. It's just, everybody is appreciative for the 20 years, but everybody was ready to move on. It was time. So I think Chad has done the absolute best he could do in a bad situation. And Carson, he certainly appears, despite what he said about his contract status today, to be on really solid footing.
That's what I said last week, and nothing deterred me from that thinking, and that's why I've maintained that from the beginning. Like, this guy, you would not believe how many people he kept in the fold last year after Mike Gundy's comments. Like, the job he did to keep what was left intact, people aren't going to know. It was he's done an unbelievable job behind the scenes that he doesn't get enough credit for because it's a job you do behind the scenes for the most part. And I think he certainly understands that. But I maintained he was not going anywhere. He had the support of the people that really matter. I do think there's a lot of dysfunction going on at OSU, like I mentioned, with the Board of Regents and just the lack of with the time that Casey Schrum was out of there. It's just been total dysfunction. And I think Chad Weiberg reestablishing himself as the voice in the room to make tough calls like he did with Mike Gundy, it's much needed. And I trust Chad Weiberg to lead this athletic department. And based on everything I've heard, he is going to do some unbelievable things moving forward. That probably starts with the next coach, which we can get into as well. But I just want to make it clear, again, that Chad Weiberg has done an impeccable job of holding this thing together with all the issues we've laid out. So I'm not even really sure where to go next, but I had Board of Regents on the rundown. I don't have a whole lot to add there other than it seems as if, I think Chad was kind of labeled amongst some of the Board of Regents. There's been a lot of infighting there. I think a lot of the Board of Regents viewed him as kind of aligned with Dr. Schrum, who, was the reason Mike Gundy, she was the biggest supporter of Mike Gundy, and that pairing for Chad kind of put him in the crosshairs a little bit, but I think cooler heads and smarter heads really prevailed here to keep Chad as the athletic director, because I think he's tremendous and he's got big plans, and he's already shown that with the suites that we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, and obviously this hire will be the defining moment of Chad Weiberg's young career as the athletic director at Oklahoma State. This is a big deal. You have to get this right. You fire Mike Gundy midseason, you have to get the hire right. So, Carson, I'll ask you a question that I've been asked today that I've seen in the comments. I might have gotten it on Twitter earlier. The decision to go ahead and pull the trigger now on Mike Gundy, your opinion, your perspective, what percentage of that comes from Chad Weiberg? What percentage of that comes from the Board of Regents? Is Chad going to them and saying we need to do this today? Or are they going to Chad and saying we need to do this today? What's the balance of power in that situation, in your opinion? We're not in those rooms, obviously.
That's Chad's call, in my opinion, my informed opinion. Now, the Board of Regents have some sway up there. I'm not naive to think that they don't. I certainly think Jimmy Harrell from the Board of Regents has a lot of power in Stillwater. I don't know if he was in Chad's camp or not or what, but I know he has a lot of say on what things go on there. But Chad's the athletic director. The Board of Regents is not going to fire Mike Gundy with their AD not having a contract in essence. I'm pretty sure Chad has a contract in essence if it's not been signed yet. Do you know how long it takes to hire an athletic director? It's not a 2-week job. It takes months. So this was Chad's call, and that's why he said he met with Mike Gundy. Like, it's his call to make. He's the one that's going to hire the next coach. So I do think in all of this Gundy hysteria that's gone on since last spring that it's been misconstrued that the Board of Regents are, like I said last show, up in this dark tower with a gavel, deciding who goes, who stays, like the show Traitors with their little like cloaks on. You know, I think it's been misconstrued in that sense. But no, my answer is Chad Weiberg, and he's going to make the next hire. And I think he already knows who he wants to hire.
Okay, is that leading us to our next conversation? I don't want to dive too deep into that if you're not ready to get there yet.
We'll get to that on the top candidates, but I think you touched on it earlier about, you know, I keep seeing on social media and people have asked, you know, well, what happens now? The portal, everyone can transfer. They get in the portal. Guys, those players could choose to start sitting out at the redshirt rule game line with Mike Gundy or without. And it's like Chad Weiberg said, like, the guys who have decommitted, they can recommit. Where are these players going to go? What on the game film from Oregon and Tulsa are these guys going to go out on the open market tomorrow and, one, find a place to go play football, and two, command NIL dollars? Like, look, no one wants the players to leave. I'm not saying that I don't care. I'm just saying that is not a factor in this decision at all. Like, it's the open market, essentially. They can do that at any point. And if they were going to sit out with the redshirt rule, they were going to do it anyway, whether Mike Gundy was the head coach or not.
Yeah, and I would say this about most of the players. I can't speak for all of them. I would say most of them are going to want to play out the season to try to put something on film, Carson. Most of these guys are going to want to go play somewhere else. They're going to need something good on film if they're going to want to go play at the level that I think most of these guys want to play at. You know, I don't know for sure with all of them. You know, a guy like Terrell Davis pops in my mind. Does he want to do that? What's the difference in his eligibility coming from D2 to D1? You know, is he going to decide, hey, football was way more fun at UCO. I'm just going to go back down there and have another 1,600 yards and 27 touchdowns because that was way more fun than what I'm doing up here. Maybe. But, you know, if any players decide to sit out, I would totally understand they have to make decisions now that are best for their future. But I really think most of these guys are going to want to play out the season because, number one, if they're playing football at this level, chances are they love the game. They love suiting up. They love going and getting after it. And they're going to embrace the challenge. But number two, I think they're all going to be thinking about their futures and not necessarily just the year of eligibility, but what they have on film for other schools to see. So I still think you're going to see a lot of players going out there and really trying to showcase what they can be individually. And hopefully that culminates in some better team success. Because, yeah, these guys are going to want to continue to play college football, and they're going to need other coaches and other programs to have a reason to want to bring them in.
Well, and you asked me last week, what do you think about an interim coach? And I said, I don't think that's going to be a negative thing at all if that happens. I mean, think about it from a coaching perspective, Colby. Doug Meacham and Todd Grantham are coaching for their next job. Do you think this offense might look a little different with Doug Meacham on the headset, down on the field, being the interim coach? This is an opportunity to treat this season like Mike Gundy treated bowl games. Let it all hang out. You want to see what Doug Meacham's got in the playbook? Watch this. Now, he has to incorporate Zane Flores and not Haas Haney, who was his handpicked quarterback. I understand the issues. Mike Gundy understood those issues. But it's a chance for the players and coaches, full stop, to put their best on film for their next job. Because this is a professional sport now, guys. This is not amateur sports anymore. Everyone's playing and coaching for their next job. And so it serves them to go out there and crush it. It serves Doug Meacham to not run the Casey Dunn, Mike Gundy offense we've seen for 10 years. So I think this is going to be an incredibly interesting to watch play out.
Yeah, if I'm Doug Meacham, I am just letting it all hang out every Saturday. I think if you're Doug Meacham, you have to look at what's happened these first few weeks, try to coach around your weeknesses. And I I mean, I don't know if that means full air raid. You're struggling to run the ball. Maybe it's opponent based, but I'm really fascinated to see what Doug Meacham comes up with. And I don't know, this happened Tuesday, obviously. It is 9:30 on Tuesday night. Oklahoma State plays Baylor at 2:30 on Saturday. The amount of time left to prepare for this particular game, you don't have a lot, but I'm very curious to see just how different it'll look this Saturday and then the following Saturday when Meacham has had 10 days now as interim head coach. How much different does it really look at that point? I absolutely will not sit here and believe that yet, but I don't know. I'm cautiously optimistic that we will see a more watchable product because Meacham will not have any restraints into what he wants to do on offense. And at this point, you can just try stuff, right? Like you can just try stuff. If you're Doug Meacham, make somebody somewhere look at something on film and go, oh, that was creative. That was clever. So yeah, I don't know what it's going to look like the rest of the season. I think anybody who tells you they do, they're lying, but I'm at least excited for the prospect of potentially seeing something different than what we have seen. I'll say it again, for the last calendar year.
Did you see this? Could the people at home see that? I hope so.
Can't see the stuff, but it comes through on YouTube. So
okay, I just wanted to do that to see if we could see if Baylor coming to town.
Nice.
I haven't got all the ones and twos figured out. Oh, it did play. I'm seeing it now on a delay. No, I think like that's the if there is a positive to take from Mike Gundy being fired, it is clean slate, no toxicity, and honestly, Colby, think about if Gundy had coached the rest of this season without us knowing if it was his final game, just how the losses would keep mounting. You have to have that difficult conversation they had over the weekend, which again, I don't think this decision to fire Mike Gundy was made today. It was not. Those discussions happened earlier in the week. He was given Monday to announce it. He chose to draw a line in the sand, and that's where we are today. But think about, he coaches his last game, they fire him. You got to go hire a coach, and you don't get any sort of resolution with the fans, with Mike Gundy, nothing. It's just gone. On to the next page. This way, at least, there'll be some appreciation for Mike as well. And I'm sure he can probably see that at some point, if not today.
Yeah. How long do you think it's going to be before we get a statement from Mike? I would have to think that we get a statement in the next day or two from Mike, right?
I don't know. I wouldn't bet on it. I mean, you mentioned the election night apology that was forced. I don't know. I doubt it. I mean, Cale Gundy went on the Sports Animal and had just glowing things to say and said all these positive things, and I hope that's the case. I don't claim to know, but he said, look, no hard feelings. Oklahoma State's been great to Mike. It's been great to his family. Apparently, Cale told Brett McMurphy that Mike wants to coach again and that he's going to join him, and I would love to see that. I would love to see a Mike Gundy coach team, besides Oklahoma State, and just see what that looks like. I have no idea. Now, the NIL era is a different animal, which we've just discussed for the remainder of the show. So I don't know. I wouldn't hold my breath though.
I will be the one to go out on a limb. I will say we get a statement from Mike Gundy on Wednesday. I think he takes Tuesday, and I think he releases a statement tomorrow. I don't know that. Obviously, I'm just totally guessing, but I would think. Look, again, some time's going to have to pass. I think that despite any no hard feelings talk from Cale on the animal. Despite the amount of people today who have said, thank you, coach, so much for the last 20 years, I still think that there are going to be some things that have happened over the last year that are going to take a little bit of time for Mike Gundy to get over and are going to take a little bit of time for the fan base to get over. So I do think that there's going to be needing some time here for everyone to heal from what the last year has been. But I think Mike Gundy, somewhere deep down, I think he cares about his legacy at Oklahoma State. I hope he cares about his legacy at Oklahoma State. He's been synonymous with Oklahoma State for the better part of 40 years. Like, I really hope that that's the case, and I hope that he sends out something really nice tomorrow about Oklahoma State, about his time, about the fans, and I think that would go a long way toward just kind of making this a smoother transition.
We're going to get to some questions here soon, but first let's hear from our friends at Wolf Corporation. Let's see here. Okay. You can still hear me, right? I hope the people at home can still hear me.
I can still hear you.
Okay. Well, Cowboy fans looking to sell or lease commercial property turn to Wolf Corporation. Tell me in the chat if you can hear me, because I don't want to do this ad read twice. Let's see here. I haven't seen a comment yet. Colby, just stop me if you see a comment saying they can't hear me. Turn to Wolf Corporation, Oklahoma's trusted commercial real estate listing brokerage since 2010. Their experienced team specializes in showcasing your retail office or industrial space to the right buyers and tenants across the state. Based right here in Oklahoma, they deliver results with local expertise. Visit us at wolfcorporation.com. That's WULF corporation.com, or call 405-308-3480 today. Go Pokes. Hey, we're cooking with gas now, Colby. Oh, yeah, cooking with gas. So we appreciate Wolf sponsoring the show, as always. We'll get to questions here in just a second, but the natural question leads to who's next for Oklahoma State. And I do want to, before we start the discussions about Zach and GJ Kinney or whatever the hot name is currently, I'm torn on this because I already have heard if Zach Robinson were to take the job, he's already got a lot of things lined up. All the things we were talking about earlier that were left on the table due to Mike Gundy, those things are going to be very much on the table if Zach Robinson becomes the next head coach. So I'm a little torn in that I don't think Oklahoma State should just go and hire an OSU alum just for the sake of hiring an OSU alum. But Zach brings a lot to the table, despite being in addition to being one of the most beloved players in school history. But I do think Oklahoma State is in a position now that, and it's a credit to Mike Gundy, where they can go get the best possible coach at top dollar. That was my frustrations with the coordinator hires. They're paying Doug Meacham and Todd Grantham top dollar. Those guys didn't call plays in 4 years. So Oklahoma State is in a position where they should go hire the best coach. And if that happens to be Zach, which, based on things I've heard, it's a can't miss. But that's where, or else you end up like Tulsa basketball, the analogy you and I have made a million times on this show. They got tired of replacing Bill Self, hire coaches you think will stay. So OSU is in a much different position now than when they hired Mike Gundy.
Oh, 100% different position than when they hired Mike Gundy. The program has been elevated to a status under Mike Gundy, credit to Mike Gundy, that we couldn't have dreamed of 20 years ago. And I do think that gives Oklahoma State the ability to go out and make a really good hire. I do think Zach would be a really good hire. I know that, look, the Falcons had a really bad game Sunday. I get it. I've had people tweeting me, hey, the Falcons look bad Sunday. What's going on down there with Zach? I don't know. Was he distracted? I don't know. Was he talking to Chad Weiberg? Just kidding. But yeah, I think that he is a qualified candidate. He spent time with Sean McVay. He's been in the NFL. You have had really good sources ever since last December when everything was going around. And I believe you when you say that he has a plan in place that would hit the ground running. I believe he would be the type of guy who would be able to get every dollar. I mean, we're talking about squeezing every possible dollar out of your donors, out of your fan base. I mean, some other names on this list, and we're going to talk about them because there are some other candidates that I really like that I think would be really good hires to come into Oklahoma State. But when we're talking about squeezing every possible dollar out of every potential donor to Oklahoma State, I can't think of anyone better to go out and get that money rounded up than Zach Robinson. He's beloved. He is absolutely beloved. He was kind of the first quarterback. He's not kind of. He was the first quarterback under Mike Gundy that everyone fell in love with, that was the guy. I mean, it was Zach Robinson to Dez. It was Zach running all over the place. He was awesome. And to see him blossom as a coach and make his way up through the ranks in the NFL has been really fun to watch. So from a fundraising standpoint, Carson, and we're talking about, everybody's in the comments, you got to go get guys in the trenches, go get offensive line, go get defensive line. I mean, look what Texas Tech is doing with their money. They've got guys on the defensive line mauling Utah the other day, grabbing them with one arm and throwing them to the side like they're children. Like, going and getting every dollar fundraising, I think that in terms of fundraising, Zach is easily the number one candidate. And then in terms of who we think would run the best offense, stuff like that, we can get into some of the other candidates. But when we're talking about squeezing out every dollar, I think Zach is absolutely the number one candidate to squeeze out every dollar.
I'm told my audio was still low. Is that better for the people watching on YouTube? I turned it up. Schemes are fine. And yeah, like I don't understand this notion that Zach hasn't coached in college. Like, would a Lincoln Riley interest you in as an Oklahoma State head coach? Like Zach's at a higher level than Lincoln Riley. Like Lincoln Riley, everyone thought was going to go to the NFL. Well, he's still at USC, and like that, he's of the Sean McVay tree, and he's of that similar mindset. A Steve Sarkisian, who, by the way, was the offensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons at one time. Does Steve Sarkisian interest you? And this guy happened to play quarterback at Oklahoma State and loves the school and has a lot of personal reasons to go back to Stillwater. There's a lot there to unpack. And you just look all over the country, Colby. There's plenty of offensive minds that are head coaches that are calling their own plays. So I think the list, as I said last spring, and again, Zach does not want to be viewed as pushing Mike out the door. That runway has been cleared with how the last season and this season has played out. So Zach, I think, wants the job. He was very interested. There was mutual interest last spring. I see no reason for that to change now. There's a lot there that is not public that he would want the job. And I keep saying this. He has a plan for NIL. He has a plan for revenue sharing. He's coming literally from the NFL. So I don't know what people want in a candidate more than what Zach Robinson brings to the table. I really don't. And again, the reason I'm saying he's the number one candidate is I've heard that from people who know. So this list is going to start with Zach Robinson. Make no mistake. The list starts 1 Zach Robinson, 2 Zach Robinson, 3 Zach Robinson. And then if he says no still, then you go to the others on the list. I do think Todd Monken, they would make him say no after Zach. But again, Todd Monken's best friends with Mike Gundy. He wanted nothing to do with college football before NIL. He took a QB coach job in the NFL to leave a head coaching position in college. He ain't coming back. And he's just, again, one of the top offensive minds in the NFL. So those two would be the top 2 candidates. I don't think Todd Monken's interested. I do think Zach Robinson's interested, and he's going to get the first call.
Yeah, I mean, you say I don't know what objections anyone could have to Zach Robinson being the head coach. I will play devil's advocate and give you 2. I don't believe these, but I will give you 2 just because some things are being thrown around in the chat, and I understand not everyone is in 100% agreement on this. Some people will say, well, he's never been a head coach. I get it. He's never been a head coach. Fair retort. Mike Gundy had never been a head coach. That worked out pretty good for a long, long time. So everyone hasn't been a head coach until they are, and then you figure out whether that guy can go out and win games. The other point, what was the other point I was going to make? There are some people in the chat, Carson, who are actually anti-hiring Oklahoma State alum because they feel like historically alums are given too long of a leash whenever they're not succeeding. Things take a dip, things like that. I don't know. There's some stepping stone concerns in the comments. I think if you're a stepping stone, it means you're winning. We all want to be winning. If you're replacing coaches, you're replacing them because they were great. Like, would everyone sign up to hire another Jim Knowles today? If I told you we could get the exact same results from our next defensive coordinator that we got from Jim Knowles, but the outcome would be the exact same. Ohio State would come, they'd give him more money than we could pay him, and he would go to Columbus. You think everybody in here would sign up for that right now? The stepping stone concerns, and we've talked about this for years, if you're a stepping stone, and the level of program that has to come in to take your guys, West Virginia isn't coming in to take your coaches. We've elevated above that. You know, even like UCLA, places like this, Wisconsin, places like that, they're not coming in to take your head coach. They're not big enough. You're talking Oregon, Ohio State, Alabama. You're talking about like the top 15 biggest names in the country. Those are the schools that could come in and offer enough money and enough resources and enough other things to take your head coach from you if, in fact, you were winning at that level. The stepping stone is not a concern to me at all. I don't have a problem hiring or not hiring an alum. I believe in hiring the best candidate. I think that is Zach Robinson for a lot of the reasons that I just mentioned. Money matters so much in collegiate athletics right now. I think he is the guy who gets the absolute most of it. I also think he is a good coach. People in the NFL speak very highly from him. I know some people want to point to a shutout against the Panthers on Sunday. I mean, holy small sample size. Like people in the in the NFL speak very highly of Zach Robinson. Sean McVay, who is the wonderkind in the NFL, for my money, the smartest offensive head coach in the NFL, he speaks very highly of Zach Robinson. So, yeah, I think he's qualified. The fact that he is an alum, to me, is a bonus, and I think that he would do a great job getting the money. I think he's young. I think he's brilliant. I think he would bring in good coordinators. I really like the idea of Zach Robinson being the guy. And I will also acknowledge there are other candidates on this list that I really like and I think would be good hires.
Yeah, the game's changed. Look at Matt Campbell at Iowa State. 10 years ago, he gets poached and goes somewhere else. They're paying him a lot of money. Paying him, I think, it's $5 million a year. Oklahoma State's paying Mike Gundy, what was it, 6 after the reduction? So I don't worry about OSU being a stepping stone job anymore at all. Like, the doors that are going to open with the salary they pay Mike Gundy it's basically, unless you have a top job in the Big Ten or a top job in the SEC and maybe a Matt Campbell at Iowa State, you're not taking the job. Past that, you can go pick your guy, whoever you want. You're going to pay him $5, $6, $7 million. The coach is going to be like, where do I sign? Where do I sign? And I'm seeing a lot of hate for Zach Robinson here. And look, I get and understand where you're coming from with the let's not just hire an OSU guy. He's never coached in college. Those are fair concerns. I'm not saying you're an idiot for thinking that. I brought up Steve Sarkisian, who was the offensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons. I don't think that's set in yet for some of the people commenting in there. He's doing okay at Texas. I mean, he was in the playoff last year. So yeah, all the sentimental reasons are fine, but Zach has earned the opportunity should it come based on what he's done in the coaching, not because he played quarterback at Oklahoma State. Who else do you like?
Yeah, sorry, I was reading through some of the comments here. Aaron Yunt being an NFL OC is drastically different than calling plays in college. Yes and no. You understand schemes. I think it's probably, for my money, easier in college. The defense is not going to be advanced. You're going to be attacking, in my opinion, inferior D coordinators to what you're facing in the NFL. Obviously, inferior talent to what you're trying to scheme around. I mean, the monsters that are playing defense right now in the NFL, it's just absurd. Jordan Davis is 330 pounds. He was running 19 miles an hour with that blocked field goal on Sunday. It's just absolute monsters in that league. So I think Zach would have success. Obviously, time would tell. Other names on this list, Carson, I really like Alex Golesh down at USF. He was a GA under Mike Gundy in 2008. And the thing that sticks out to me about Golesh is he took over a South Florida program that was at rock bottom, and he turned it around. I don't want to say immediately, but he turned it around pretty quick down at USF. They were 4-29 in the 3 years before he got there. They're 17-13 in the 30 games since. They just got a big win over Florida a couple of weeks ago. They steamrolled Boise State the week before that. He's a good coach. He led those Tennessee offenses. I believe it was when Hendon Hooker was there. In 2022, his offense at Tennessee was first in points per game. They averaged 46 points per game in the SEC that year. They were second in the country in yards per play at 7.23. Alex Golesh, he can coach some offensive football, and he just took over a program that was at absolute rock bottom and got it back to a place where it's respectable. Those people are fired up, and they've got it rolling right now. So if it's not Zach Robinson, I think he's the first name on my list.
Okay. I like everything you laid out there. Makes sense. And those are the type of hires you make. If you're going to pay someone $5-6 million, the job he's done so far at USF is certainly reasonable. I think GJ Kinney has a lot of support in the chat. I certainly understand. Young guy. He's got OSU ties. Our man Seth Duckworth. I think he's spoken highly of GJ Kinney. He has some personal connections there. I think he would take the job if offered. He has gone 8-5 the last 2 years at a lower level, but he has put Texas State on the map. He would certainly be a good candidate. Eric Morris getting a lot of hype. A Mike Leach disciple. I mean, these are names that make total sense. That I think, I would not thumb my nose at all. I'm forgetting one. Oh, Colin Klein was mentioned in the chat. So I think the K-State natives are getting a little restless. This is before Mike Gundy was fired. John Kurtz, I don't think he minds me sharing this publicly. He asked me if I'd heard anything about Colin Klein and Oklahoma State, and I hadn't, or still have not. But I think there's a real talk at K-State about Chris Klieman retiring, and I think they're fearing what young Carson was fearing in about 2000, 2001, whatever it was, when young Bill Self was just crushing it at Tulsa, and I was like, oh my God, Eddie's not going to retire anytime soon. Don't get a big job. And Kansas hired Bill Self, and we never saw him in Stillwater again unless he was coaching against OSU. I think that's how K-State feels about Colin Klein. And you look at what he's done at Texas A&M, makes a lot of sense. Familiar with these parts, played at Kansas State. That would be a really good hire too. Colin Klein's a really young, up-and-coming, top-notch offensive mind, and a guy that would certainly know how to navigate the NIL waters, considering he's at Texas A&M, which we know how much NIL money they have.
Yeah, and again, he would not check the box of proven head coach for a lot of people, and I understand that's not a box that I necessarily need checked. I think you can be a really good candidate without having been a head coach. He's got a really good offense down at Texas A&M. They just put up, I think, nearly 500 yards on Notre Dame the other day. Like, they're playing some good football down there at Texas A&M, and Colin Klein's been a big part of that. Also, Colin Klein, he just he has the absolute vibe and feel of a college football lifer. Right? Like, he was a dog at K-State, and then he gets done at K-State, and what happens? He's just immediately in the college coaching ranks. Like, this guy, I mean, it just seems like he lives, breathes, eats college football. So from that perspective, I would love the energy that Colin Klein brings. He is a name that I think people in Big 12 country can attach themselves to. His career was recent. People remember the things that Colin Klein did. I think that it's just a bonus that he had some really good moments against the University of Oklahoma. That's just an extra little fun nugget there that he was good against OU. I think that would be a good hire. I think Chad Weiberg is going to consult with a lot of really smart people to make the absolute best hire. You should consult with Brewster Consulting Group. Do any of these sound familiar at your company? AI, but no clue what it actually means for your business. Projects always running over time, always running over budget. If so, talk with our friends at Brewster Consulting Group. They help build organizations that run like well-oiled machines with clear processes, reliable data and reporting, and technology. For large international enterprises like DP World. Even better, they're founded and run by a proud Oklahoma State alum and season ticket holder. Learn more about them at www.brewsterconsulting.com or learn more about them and their methodologies by connecting with them at Brewster Consulting Group on LinkedIn or YouTube. Appreciate all of our great sponsors. Carson, I saw you scrambling whenever I launched into that. Carson never knows exactly when I'm going to launch in, and now he's got all the YouTube stuff, so I like to spring it on him. Keep him on his toes.
I don't know if that worked or not, but they can hear me right now, I think. So I'll leave this up here for the time being. So I'm accused of talking about OU too much on this podcast, so I'm going to play to my fan base right now, since you mentioned Colin Klein. So I'm in this group text from the Fantasy Dojo, if they're watching. We've had this fantasy football group since like my freshman year of high school, and they're all Sooners. I'm the only Cowboy in the whole thing, so it's brutal. It's brutal. I get it from every angle that you can imagine. But they put in there this little rundown of like Oklahoma State versus Oregon leading up into that game, and they were like, and it claimed national titles for OSU in 1945 and 2011. And they asked me when the 2011 national title banner was going up in the stadium. And I said, well, that's actually a more legitimate claim than Oklahoma's 2012 Big 12 championship claim. For people who don't remember, Colin Klein went into Norman and won. They played head-to-head in Norman. Kansas State won. They ended up tied in the standings of the Big 12 at the end of the year with the head-to-head after the league themselves championed one true champion all year, and OU claimed a split Big 12 championship. It was absurd. I interviewed Gabe Eichert after the game. Love Gabe. He had this like sheepish, like, well, if they're going to give us the shirts and hats, I guess. So take that, Colin Klein. Take that, Sooner fans. So like, I'm accused of being a Sooner homer a lot, so take that. That's what I think of when I think of Colin Klein.
Gabe's a good guy. I worked with Gabe at the franchise. I'd be curious, looking back on it now, if he still has that same sheepish grin. Also, apparently, Carson, when you play the videos and stuff, your audio still works, but mine does not.
Yeah.
So I won't go through the whole thing again. But Brewster, you're getting a lot of great exposure in the chat, and we love Brewster Consulting. Go to www.brewsterconsulting.com. OSU alum, proud Oklahoma State alum. And hey, maybe if we all use Brewster Consulting, they can make a little dough, funnel some of that to NIL. Not putting any pressure on anybody. I'm just saying, Brewster Consulting, go check them out. We love our great sponsors.
Eddie said, well, Brewster should send a consultant to the pod to help them fix it. I'm all ears. I need Brewster Consulting to help me here. I'm doing the best I can. 8 to 10 plays away, as someone else mentioned. 8 to 10 plays away. Let's get to the questions, Colby. You highlighted some. Let's get to those first, and I'll see what I got here.
Oh, I'm scrolling up. I lost it. Okay, here it is. So Chad was very intentional, Carson, today. We've talked about this. He made it a point to mention that we are looking not at this week, not at next week. We're looking at next year, 2 years, 5 years down the road. And he made it a point to bring up the TV contracts and the fact that usually the expiration and renewing of TV contracts overlaps with conference realignment. He was very specific to bring that up. I think that he is already planting the seed that Oklahoma State needs to be peaking 3 years from now, 4 years from now. Everyone needs to be on board. NIL needs to be on board. The new coach needs to be on board. You need to have a winning football program in the 2027, 2028, 2029 seasons. You need to be peaking at that time because you need to be a valuable commodity if and when we continue to consolidate conferences around the country. This could go to 2 30-team super conferences. We don't know what's going to happen with the conferences. Maybe the SEC and the Big Ten are just going to absorb everything. And if they do that, maybe we end up just going back where everyone plays regionally, which would be great. I don't know what's going to happen with conferences. Nobody knows what's going to happen with conferences. But Chad was very intentional to point that out today. So, if you're looking at timeline for when this thing needs to be successful, doesn't necessarily have to be next year, maybe not even 27. I think by 28, you've got to start to see some success on the field to set yourself up well for potential conference realignment.
And if you're one of the ones that has concerns about Zach Robinson, this is a absolutely critical hire. So I guarantee you, Chad Weiberg is going to look at this from every angle when it comes to Zach Robinson. Someone asked who's Chad's choice. It's Zach Robinson. Like, he was going to be the coach if Mike Gundy couldn't come to an agreement last spring. Mark it down. I have that on very good authority. So that's who I expect to be the next coach. But it's tricky, as I've continued to mention. But it's like, to your point, it's a critical hire. If you're concerned about Zach, I guarantee you Chad Weiberg's already thought about all of those concerns and 10 others and reevaluated them already. So just trust Chad Weiberg to make the best possible hire. And if it's not Zach, if an Alex Golish knocks his socks off in an interview, at this point, you said in Gundy we trust, in Chad we should all trust because he's steering this ship right now without a head coach.
Yeah, and he understands the stakes. Like, he understands what's coming with potential conference realignment. Absolutely. And just how close Oklahoma State was. And again, Oklahoma State was up at the time. So I think it's more likely that a different school in Iowa State, somebody like that, would have gone the way of Oregon State and Washington State. But you just never know. Nothing is guaranteed in collegiate athletics anymore. Carson, quickly, before we move on from this Zach conversation, some people are asking in the chat, and I'm wondering myself, do you see a scenario in which he would potentially leave the Atlanta Falcons prior to the end of their season to come to Oklahoma State? I'm not asking you to have inside information here. I'm just asking, again, they're 1-2. They just got, their brains beaten in by the Carolina Panthers on Sunday. They're in a division with the Bucs, who are 3-0. They're probably not going to win that division. The NFC is probably deeper than it's been in a long time. I don't think that's a playoff team. Look, if they're right there neck and neck, I think maybe he has a tough time walking into that room, looking his guys that he's been through all this with and telling them that he's leaving. But if they're 3-8 at the end of November, I mean, I think there's every possibility that the Falcons and Zach agree to part ways if he's going to make his way to Stillwater. So I was just curious. I'm not asking for inside info, just curious your thoughts on that.
Give me 1 second.
Okay. We will give Carson 1 second. I'll head back over here to the chat. Bobby Reed, that's funny. Let's see. Where does Gundy coach next? We don't know where Gundy's going to coach next. What about Josh Fields? He's available too. Probably doesn't meet the qualification criteria. Somebody said, Carson, do you have Zach's number in your contacts? Blink if yes. And then somebody else said he blinked. That's good stuff. That's really good stuff. Andrew Taylor, can we steal Dan Lanning from Oregon? Nope, we cannot. Oregon has all the money, and he loves it up here. Somebody said we sold our souls for the Bedlam win to be forever Bedlam champions. I don't necessarily disagree with that. Yeah, Bedlam 2023 was pretty great. It's gone pretty bad since. So somebody here saying Matt Campbell's buyout is only $2 million. That's a fairly interesting little tidbit there. And then people are asking for a time frame on when a potential new hire would get brought in, which is kind of what I was alluding to there with Zach. So
okay, I'm back. Sorry.
Okay, yeah, good stuff here. And then one more.
My monitors kind of went away from me there, but I'm back. No, to your point, I mean, that's certainly a scenario that could play out if things are going poorly with Atlanta. Maybe, but like as for like right now, like she's got an entire college football season to play. They got 9 conference games to play. What's that going to leave Atlanta for tomorrow for? There's nothing for him to do right now. They got an interim coach. He's going to coach out the year. Their last game's November 29th, to your point. We get into December, maybe. That certainly could happen. And I kind of think, like, it's not going to be a Bobby Petrino situation where he was the head coach of the Falcons, left him high and dry in the middle of the year. Like, this is a situation where it's his school. Like, I think Atlanta would be understanding, and certainly if they're having a terrible year, they might not care. I don't know. But the timeline's not being expedited on Zach's end. It's pretty set in stone. There's not a whole lot he can do until the college football season ends, right?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, if he comes in right now, I mean, what do we expect Zach Robinson to just walk into this locker room full of guys and all of a sudden he's the head coach and Meacham's his OC, Grantham's his DC? That would be very weird. So, yes, I think the earliest that Zach Robinson would come in would be the day after the season ends, would be the very earliest that he would take over as the head coach. Now, if that scenario plays itself out, the sooner the better, right? I mean, you've got portal opening up in December, and that's why I do wonder about the logistics if he is unable or unwilling to leave Atlanta before the end of the season. If they're unable or unwilling to let him go, what does that look like logistically if he can't be here until January? How far does that set you back? And how big of a bullet point is that for Chad? So those are all questions for Chad to be answered. Those are all questions for Chad and Zach to figure out if, in fact, he does become the head coach. Like you said, if Galesh goes in there and wows him in an interview, if Colin Klein goes in there and wows him in an interview, maybe he decides that one of those guys are best to lead the program. Somebody else asked an interesting question here, Carson. You want the better in-game coach or do you want the better recruiter? Because I think I know my answer, but I want yours first.
Well, that was a question I was supposed to ask you. I kind of forgot about it. Would you rather have a coach who's elite at in-game coaching and just good at NIL and recruiting, or the inverse? I think all you got to do is look at Texas Tech. I mean, I think there's a delicate balance there, of course, but Joey McGuire wasn't exactly lighting the world on fire without NIL dollars. It was he. Now they look like the cream of the crop in the Big 12. So I'd probably lean towards the recruiter.
So you pointed to Texas Tech. I was going to point to Miami. I was going to point to Mario Cristobal. Mario Cristobal is not widely regarded as a really good football coach. He is still clowned for a couple of years ago. They were, maybe it was last year. No, it was 2 years ago. They were beating Georgia Tech at the end of the game. All they had to do was take knees. Game was over. Victory formation. And they're out there running the ball for some reason. His running back fumbles. They lose the game. Like, Mario Cristobal has coughed up a bunch of games in his, 4 or 5 years at Miami. And now they're just absolutely loaded because they've stacked class on top of class on top of class. And I mean, they've got NFL draft picks all up and down the offensive and defensive lines. And they're just absolutely mauling people. They're probably a playoff team. If they beat Florida State, there's a good chance they go undefeated this season. So I think how do I want to phrase this? Like, if you are a good recruiter, I think it raises the floor higher than being a good coach does. And that's what you need. You need a higher floor. Having the better athletes gives you that higher floor. And then hopefully you hire people you trust at the coordinator position. Hopefully experience allows you to become a better head coach. But the bottom doesn't really fall out if you're more talented than the teams that you're playing against. So I think I would also lean recruiter.
Yep, I would too. A lot of questions about Rob Glass. What'd you make of that announcement that he's – how did Chad phrase it? Again, I had a million things going on today.
Yeah. So not Todd. Todd Grantham's DC. Doug Meacham is handling everything between the lines, and Rob Glass is handling everything outside the lines. Is the way Chad worded it. Basically, he doesn't want Doug Meacham to have to come in and be the CEO and handle all of the day-to-day football operations stuff. So Rob Glass is going to be handling football operations. He's been around for so long. And then Doug Meacham is just going to handle the football stuff, coaching, game plans, trying to win the game, doing the pressers, stuff like that. But Rob Glass will handle the operations stuff. So I thought that was totally fine. Whether Rob Glass will hold over in the next administration, I can't say. Some people in here are saying he's been around forever. He's been great. Some people are saying, look at the way Oklahoma State's getting pushed around. How can you justify bringing back the strength coach? I can't claim to know enough about what a strength coach does day in, day out. I'm going to have to defer to the next head coach that Oklahoma State hires. And if the next head coach that Oklahoma State hires thinks that he should be brought back, I'm on board. If they want to bring in somebody else, that's good by me too. That I can't sit here and have a super strong take about the strength and conditioning coach.
OSU sure has a lot of injuries, particularly in the offensive line. And I do wonder, a lot of them are shoulder injuries. I know he's drawn some criticism from past players about that. Maybe not past players. That's not where I heard that. I don't want to misspeak, but a lot of injuries there. But he's very well respected. He makes. I think he's the highest paid strength coach in the country, and I'm with you. I'm not there on a day-to-day basis. I don't claim to know what level of impact he has. If Chad Weiberg trusts him to run that, then that's good enough for me. We got time for a few more.
I'm on board. I'm looking here. Oh, here's a good one. Can we hire Sam Presti as our GM for football and men's basketball? No, but that would be a lot of fun. Also, Carson, I want to shout out Andrew Schlecht, who tweeted today and said that we needed an emergency pod.
Down to dunk.
Yeah, I'm an avid dunker, so I was happy to see that text from Andrew Schlecht. I've listened to him about as much as I've listened to anybody over the last 6 months.
Yeah.
So Andrew.
Shout out to Andrew. It's been really fun to watch his career just blossom, and then now that the Thunder are elite again, it's just like he deserves it. I'm really happy for him and those down to dunk guys. I think I was on episode like 6 when they were first getting going, so it's been really fun to watch them from afar really blow up in the time after that. They thoroughly deserve. It's as you and I know, Colby, it's hard to produce and perform multiple podcasts a week, and the grind is a grind, and they stuck to it, and it's paid off, and that's tremendous for them. I'm really happy for them. So here you go, Andrew. I still quote the Down to Dunk podcast daily. I have a dog named Bo, and they had this hilarious thing about his name just escaped me. The rookie that sat out all year, 44.
Topich?
Yeah, Topich. Some YouTube video. There's a clip from Down to Dunk. If you search Topich Airbud, you'll know what I'm saying. He was asked by somebody on camera on like YouTube, like his favorite movie, and like before the person could finish asking the question, he goes Airbud, Airbud. So every time I see Bo, I go Airbud, Airbo. So shout out to the Down to Dunk guys. Anyway,
the one that I quote from them. The one that I quote from them every time now is them quoting Borat. My wife. Now whenever I talk about Dana, my wife is the one that I'm always quoting. So
Airbud.
Another one. Oh, here's what I got from Pokes93 in the comments. Need an estimate of wins or hopeful dream for the rest of the season? Well, those are two different questions you're asking, Pokes93. You know what? I've got an estimate for wins right here. Tell me if this comes through. I think we're going 3-9.
People have been clamoring for that, by the way. Clamoring.
I hit it. You know what? We're getting 2 the rest of the way. That's my estimate. My hopeful dream is that they could go 5-7, but I think that's a hopeful dream. But I'll say that they can win 2 along the way. It's not murderer's row, and maybe they'll be fired up with the coaching change. Meacham and Grantham will throw it all out there.
I'll say 1. I am curious to see what it looks like once they get Meacham in there calling plays and things of that nature. But let's face facts, Colby. The roster, I think someone was saying, I don't know if it was a scout or whomever, said there's not one NFL player on the roster. That's the level they're at, despite paying all the money that they paid. So I'm going to go negative Nancy and say 1. I guess I could have said 0. That would have been really negative.
The comments are great. That singing voice is gold. Not the 3-9 song again. Good stuff. Good stuff there. Looking here, we've got several questions. 4 or 5 people asking about Kenyatta Wright, whether Kenyatta Wright stays. I think that is probably. Man,
I think he just announced he was coming back. I'll
okay,
double check that.
Okay, I was wondering if that would be a Chad decision, a head coach decision. I wouldn't imagine the head coach would need to come in and make a decision like that. I've been very clear that I think a GM for football and then an athletic director for everything else is the way to go. If you want to just full on put that on Kenyatta's plate and let him handle football, I don't know how they want to do that. But if he's coming back, then yeah, I would hope that he could work well with the next head coach to make sure they're maximizing every opportunity.
Kenyatta tweeted, "This moment will fuel everything I do the rest of the season in honor of Coach Gundy, who recruited me to come to Oklahoma State in '96 and start my journey as a Cowboy. The ride isn't over." So that answers that one.
Okay,
we'll
good
see
to know.
how it plays out structurally. And that's another thing. I'm curious how the structure will play out with a new coach, with Chad Weiberg as AD. Do they hire a full-time GM? Is that Kenyatta right? A lot of questions to be answered, but I do think that he's going to ride out this season along with the coaching staff.
Somebody saying UCLA should grab Gundy while they can. I really will be fascinated if he goes somewhere else, Carson, and what that ends up looking like. I'd be totally fine seeing him going and having success somewhere else. Sometimes your voice starts to not be as loud at one place, and you just need a reset. Maybe he just needs a reset. I don't know. But somebody in here asking about Haas Haney as well. The reporting around Haas Haney's been very mixed. Polk's report was out last week saying likely return date October 18th against Cincinnati. And then I saw something else late last week questioning whether, I think maybe it was Scott Wright on The Animal, said that he had spoken to Haas's dad and he can't really say anything, but that his future with Oklahoma State is uncertain. So I don't know what's going to happen with Haas Haney. I don't know that he wants to parachute himself back into this situation when he could probably get a medical red shirt for this year and open up that year of eligibility. I think the one quarter that he put on film, considering what Oklahoma State has been in the other 150 quarters over the last year, I think that one quarter is probably enough for Haas. So if I was guessing, Carson, over or under 0.5 snaps that Haas plays the rest of the season, I would take the under. I'll be pleasantly surprised if it's the over.
Yeah, I'd take the under too, and it makes sense for all those reasons you laid out. And I don't mean to sound callous when I say this. Like, I think people are worrying far too much about current players. Like, I'm not saying everyone's worried about it. I'm just saying that is such small potatoes in this gigantic pie, the small piece of this gigantic pie. Like, the players are going to come and go now. It's NIL era. Like, you go to the portal and get another quarterback. Like, and again, we saw Haas for a quarter against an FCS school. What does that look like against a Big 12 school? We don't know. I'm not saying it would be worse. It could have been better. I don't know. But I think we're worried far too much right now as it stands on September 23rd about who's staying, who's going. Like, let that play out. And if you go, you go. If you stay, you stay. This train's moving. So either get on or get off. That's simple.
Yeah. I had some text conversations earlier with people who were worried about players leaving. Look, I wish every player on this roster the absolute best. I don't think they've been put in a position to succeed. I don't think we truly know how talented most of them are. The reality is the guys on these rosters are the ones that on this roster are the ones that just lost by 66 points in Eugene, just lost to Tulsa at home. Look, this is going to sound harsh. I'm not losing sleep about any of those guys jumping in the portal. The next head coach is going to have to come in and rebuild this thing from the ground up. I would love to see some of the really high-level recruits that Oklahoma State has, the top guys in the state. I would love to see the next head coach be able to bring those guys back in. I think most of your commitments are probably going to decommit. It'll be on the new head coach to get them to recommit. So, it's going to be a rebuild from the ground up for the new head coach.
Yeah, exactly. And new coach comes in, calls Kewan Jones's son from Jinx. You in? That's Zach Robinson? Probably in. That's Coach Golish. He's probably in. Once they get a chance to explain. That's what Chad Weiberg said today at his press conference. Like, they can recommit. It's not as if OSU doesn't exist anymore in their brain. They wanted to go to school there for a reason. So let all that play out. And I do not think, for the record, Gundy's going to coach anywhere. That would probably mess with his buyout, with duty to mitigate and all those things. I don't think he has any interest in coaching, but also I think he wants the full buyout.
I would guess that Gundy is more likely to be doing what we're doing now than what he was doing yesterday.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Mike's going to crush it on TV. I hope he does that. That would be a lot of fun to watch.
Mike Gundy, when he is just being fun, lovable, sitting there chit-chatting about football Mike Gundy. I mean, the dude is charismatic, and he can sit and chop it up with the best of them. I think he would be phenomenal on ESPN. They've already got Saban on game day. They've got all the McAfee stuff going on, but there's other stuff that ESPN does. I don't ever see him traveling around and like being a guy calling games. But as far as an in-studio type of guy that they use in specific situations, he doesn't have to work a ton. He can just dive bomb in and be a personality. Mike Gundy, I think that's a perfect fit, and I would be watching.
Yeah, I could see him on Fox. More for him to do there. And like, let's face it, Fox's people aren't very good. Like Urban Meyer's like watching paint dry. Leinart hasn't gotten better in 10 years of doing it. Like Reggie Bush was not any good. Like Fox's team just needs a complete overhaul. And Gundy would infuse some life into that team. So I would love to see that. Gundy on Big Noon. That just sounds good, doesn't it?
Yeah, he
Big
would
Noon.
immediately. Yeah, he would immediately, like day one, probably be the best on that show. Urban Meyer is terrible. Like it's unbelievable to me that Urban Meyer. I know he was great at Florida and Ohio State, but the way his coaching career ended, and just kind of the off-field weirdness stuff. Urban Meyer. The fact that he has that
just killed me. Okie Light said, "Does OAN cover football?"
That's funny. So we've
me.
got a couple of OANs in here now. ESPN and Gundy is a no-go. The red and blue can't coexist. The comment section is getting real political now about where Mike Gundy's going to go do TV. So, Carson, I'm just about tapped. I've got to say again. I've got to say again, Carson.
Final thoughts.
I know I speak for you as well when I say we are blown away that, earlier at like 9:30, we peaked at nearly 1,100 people on this live stream. It is 10:15. There's still more than 600 of you here. Thank you so much. We appreciate the support. It is truly amazing, and we love it, and we love doing this with all of you. So we appreciate your patience as we've worked out the technological glitches getting this all going, and this has been a lot of fun. So you all make it great.
Yeah, I would reiterate everything Colby said. Thank you to all you for staying this long. It's amazing. We're going to keep doing this as long as people watch and listen. So can't do it without you. And Colby and I really enjoyed meeting listeners when we went to the week 1 game. I think we have a mutual friend trying to get us down to one of those field suites. We might have to just go do that now with the new coaching staff. We'll have to see. We'll have to negotiate with the wives. Maybe not this week, but maybe some point in the season. So
I know. I was really bummed about this week because, we got the invite this week. Dana and I had already decided we weren't going. I made family plans. And now with the announcement today and I feel like there's going to be a different energy Saturday. I was thinking to myself earlier, is there any way I can get myself out of these plans with my wife's family this Saturday to run up to Stillwater for a few hours? But probably not going to happen. But I don't know. We'll have those conversations when it's not after 10.
I agree. Don't everybody leave yet. My final thoughts. Sad day. Again, Mike Gundy's as synonymous with OSU as Pistol Pete. Been there for 40 years as a player and coach. I'm 41 years old, to put some perspective on that. So it's a sad day. I'm sad that Mike couldn't go out with a trophy. That would have been just tremendous for everyone involved. But rarely in college sports are there happy endings. Very rarely. In sports in general, rarely are there happy endings. And I do think this is, while it is sad, we're finally going to find out, is this the chicken or is this the egg? Because Mike Gundy came in as soon as OSU started to attempt to win football with Boone Pickens and the investments they made in football. Hadn't made any investments in football for 100 years. That's why they stunk for a better part of 100 years. We're going to find out the potential of Oklahoma State. I think people are going to be floored by the amount of support, both financially and butts in the seats, for the next head coach. I think game 1 next year is going to be incredible. And I plan on being there. And I know you probably do too. So sad day, but it's an important day for the history of Oklahoma State. Realignment's coming, like you mentioned. But again, Chad Weiberg was put in an impossible situation. And I think he's handled this as respectfully while exerting some literal Michael Corleone leverage in the process to get what needed to be done for the betterment of Oklahoma State. No person is bigger than Oklahoma State football. Even though Mike's been there for 40 years, it was there 100 years before him, and it'll be there 100 years after him. So credit where it's due, build the statue, name the field, but Chad Weiberg and the administration deserve everyone's support, and I don't care, like I said, time and time again, if you make $20 grand a year, $20 million, You want to see OSU win at football, and you're about to see a lot of people come out in droves to help them do it.
Yeah, that's all very well said. Today was a where were you day. Like, we're going to remember where we were when we found out that the Mike Gundy era at Oklahoma State had ended. And the mix of emotions. And I think it's okay to not feel so strong one way or another. Like, I think it's okay to not hate Mike Gundy today, to not love Mike Gundy today, to really be kind of torn about trying to balance the love and the appreciation and the gratitude for the totality of his career at Oklahoma State, while also balancing that against the disappointment we have felt with the Mike Gundy that we've gotten over the last year. So that's kind of what's been going around in my head today is, it's been so great for so long. And then lately it's just been so bad. And now it's over. And how do we look at it a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? I really think 10 years from now, I think we're going to look at more of the good. And this will be like, man, shame it had to end that way. But God, how much fun was the ride? So I think that's how we're going to end up looking at it. And I hope that Mike Gundy comes out with a statement with his appreciation for what the last 20 years have meant. I hope that fans, as we transition, the conversation at some point can shift to what the last 20 years have meant. Again, that's not what it was about today, because today we're in the now. But Mike Gundy was great for Oklahoma State University. And he made it a lot of fun to be an Oklahoma State fan. I've said before on this podcast, 2011 was my freshman year at Oklahoma State. I was camping out in a tent waiting to watch Justin Blackman, Brandon Whedon, and those guys in that 2011 season. And those are truly some of the most magical sports memories of my lifetime. So, it's the end of an era, Carson. It's a where were you day. And I'm grateful for the 20 years of Mike Gundy. I'm glad they decided to go ahead and rip off the Band-Aid. I'm excited for what the future could bring. I think it's a mix of emotions today, and that's what it should be, because this is a great thing turned bad thing that has now ended. So, a lot happening there. Do want to ask you, Carson, this was a long show. It's late Tuesday night. There's a game Saturday. Are we still doing another pod later in the week? We have some people clamoring for Ryder Cup stuff. Maybe Thursday we do a short preview and Ryder Cup pod.
Yeah, we probably should.
Yeah, we can
do that.
We probably won't do another hour and a half, 2 hours.
I don't have a whole lot of OSU Baylor predictions for you.
We can talk a little bit about what might happen Saturday at Boone Pickens Stadium, but we've got some people clamoring for Ryder Cup too. But it's nearly 10:30, so I'm going to get out of here and go to bed, and we'll talk about that later in the week. Carson, great stuff.
Do your normal sign off, and I want to send this thing out with this badass intro video I made, and we'll end it after that.
Sounds great. I was going to credit you one more time for all the work you've done on the video. This looked fantastic. Thanks to everyone for being with us all night. This was great. Appreciate everyone. As always, go Pokes.
We are back at it.
You expect to not get your teeth kicked in on your home